sometimes when you're in the bleak landscape, you have to be in the bleak landscape. You have to be there. When you're in the driving rain, if I'm constantly going, sun, shine, sunshine, it's stupidity, you know, it's foolish.
People's perception of me, you'll have to ask them. I probably get mixed reviews. A lot of people would view me with skepticism around some of my behaviours. I'm not perfect, I'm not a saint just because I've cleaned up. I'm a lot better, but there's always room for improvement. That's a sign. The girl who took me from Cocaine Anonymous, she said to me, look, Nick, you've clearly got food issues. I was crying to her about it, not literally crying, but whinging and moaning. And she said, look, come to OA with me. And the fear around walking through the door, and especially it being a predominantly female crowd, it was so much easier to walk into Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous and admit the boozers and the drugs have smashed me than to walk into OA and be like, the Nutella's like killing me, the Kinder Buenos have got me by the throat, and there's nothing I can do. It was so hard. I've lost around 4.5, 5 stone, and if you told me 3 or 4 years ago that I would look as I am now, I would have been over the moon. But when you get here, addiction's like, it's like you just want more. So now I'm where I am. I want the abs. I want like all the muscles. I'm even thinking about getting tattoos. Like I don't know what's going on. In my head, I look in the mirror and I still see that fat kid. I wake up and it's like, you're not good enough. You're shit. Am I allowed to swear? Okay, you're shit. You know, you don't deserve to live. No one likes you. Everybody hates you. Look, I've come off hard drugs and alcohol, and I've come off refined sugar and flour, and there's no difference. In fact, the food is more painful, because how do you know what abstinence is? You know, you go to AA, they say just don't pick up the first drink, but you've got to eat. I've got a little girl, I don't see her as a result of that, you know, all that stuff, and I got married and divorced. I haven't seen her for 3 years. It's really painful. Yeah. I pray every day that I want to see her. But I don't blame other people, and I don't blame her or her mum or anybody, you know. What happened was a direct result of my behaviours, and I have to own that. But it's yeah, my ex got custody. I really don't talk too much about this. Is that okay? It's so painful. Like, really bad. Sorry, bro. Is that okay?
That's the question I don't have an answer to. I don't know what the hope is. I understand hopelessness, but I don't understand hope. I had a degree in dentistry. I had a practice that I was working at. Life was good. Life was too good. And I took life for granted. I lived a very pleasurable life. I've gone from making a lot of money to barely being able to afford a ticket on a local bus. Being away from my comfortability has been very difficult. But on top of that, just dealing with the loss of my mom has even been worse. She passed away with heart surgery. She had a successful surgery, but they could not get her liver to work, so they had her on dialysis. And every time they took her off dialysis, she went into defib. And the last time, she pretty much had internal bleeding and passed away. Yes. She just said, "Let me go," and then wouldn't let me go. Yeah. I heard someone say one time, "Are you living to live or are you waiting to die?" And in these circumstances, it seems like you're waiting to die, and it can't come quick enough. I was a son, I was a colleague, and I'm no different than your children, I'm no different than your brother, I'm no different than your father, I'm no different. Just like anything else essentially in life, breathing, thinking, feeling, that's what makes me human. Just because of my circumstances, I'm no different than the person with a big house, the big car.
I definitely have times in my life which I felt like there's no purpose to get up, there's no purpose to like continue, there's no purpose to like do what you do because like, I don't know, it's very hard to explain. It seems like the problem is like desperate, but in the end of the day it's not severe, you know? Like I always try to think like that, you know? Any kind of issue that you have in life, it seems very desperate. You don't see any escape besides trying to figure it out by yourself. I didn't want to get out of bed. I felt very desperate and anxious most of the days. I felt like there was no point of going on. And after that, like after moving to London and overcoming that difficulty, which was very hard every day, I was kind of like in a point that I couldn't really talk to people. Like I wasn't opening myself. I was just like literally holding everything like for me. Basically, 6 years ago when I moved to London was like the most hardest time that I had in my life. In the end of the day, you have to have friends and family, especially friends, because like family is very hard at sometimes. Because I'm in a point in my life that I'm kind of not meaningless or like I really know what I have to do, but I just have to do it, if you know what I mean. Which is quite funny that like you ask me these questions because it's very like I'm trying to figure out where I am in life now, but by that is very like. I'm trying to keep positive and positive and positive, basically.
I was getting lower and lower and lower, and it was getting darker and darker and darker. And I was just trying to numb. I just kept numbing more and more, just to try and block out that sadness and pain.
Hitting rock bottom for me ended up being a blessing or a gift or whatever you want to call it, but at the time you lose all hope.
And I felt like I was rolling on the lowest of the low for about 3 months before I wanted to even try and do anything about it outside of trying to deal with it myself. That's what I kept on trying to do, just deal with it myself. And then I was like, okay, I'll just go to the doctor. And immediately they tried to put me on antidepressants. And then after 3 days, I threw them away. I was like, I want to try everything else. And if that doesn't work, then fine, I'll look at that. but I'm not going to self-medicate for so long and then medicate even more. And always in that time, what was really hard for me was I felt like I was in this no man's land because I didn't want to kill myself. I honestly didn't. For me, I didn't. But I was in this no man's land because I was saying, I don't want to live, but at the same time, I don't want to die. So I didn't know what to do. I remember I found it so hard to get out of bed every day. And I would wake up and it would feel like, what was the point in getting out of bed? Someone said to me, don't let your head steal your day. And I wrote that down on a post-it note and stuck it on the back of my door, so I saw that.
You're right. We cut there.
Yeah. That would be the first thing I would see every morning to remind me, to keep reminding me every day to not let my head steal my day, and that helped. And I just had to keep repeating that as a mantra in my head. There just wasn't anything out there that was accessible, that was something that was preventative, rather than let's get people when they're, as I said, like on the edge or at their lowest. And that's where the idea came for HUMEN.
As much as change is inevitable, it's difficult. The changing of relationships has been really the thing that has been the saddest thing in my life. When I was doing Hamlet, I was going through a very big period of loss myself, personal loss. That story is about a man who's going through huge loss. And even though it was incredibly painful and hard, and stamina, we did it 150 times. And I was feeling both emotionally and physically exhausted from the part. There was also something that I can see now that I was using. There was something beautiful about having a daily practice of having to go through that, but like actually getting it all out was helpful, I can see now, even though it was horrible at the time. Yeah. You sometimes feel like a nuclear bomb has gone off. There's no little shoots of daisies, it's just desolate. So I think sometimes when you're in the bleak landscape, you have to be there. When you're in the driving rain, if I'm constantly going, sun, shine, sunshine, it's stupidity, you know, it's foolish. So I think you just have to be in the rain and know that it will pass. I always find it very helpful to think of our emotions, my emotions, as weather. What's the weather like today? Because I find that the sun does always come out, and sometimes the winter lasts a very long time. And sometimes you think it's always going to be summer, but it's never going to be that. It's going to be all those things. And to have as seasonal a life as possible, I think, is the thing to strive for. There's something that I think is really beautiful that was incredibly helpful to me when I was going through a hard time, which is the idea that there is something that is with you like a friend your entire life, there when you're born, and it'll be there until you die, and it's there when you're having a panic attack, it's there when you're making love to somebody, it's there when you're on the bus, it's there when you're on stage, it's there when you're asleep. It's there all the time, and that's your breath. And I find that really moving to think that there's something there that's protecting you, even though you sometimes completely ignore it.
And what is hope to you?
I think hope is a very beautiful word. And for me, it's about love. Love is hope, and hope is love. And without hope, you know, there's no love. And without love, there's no hope. I mean, it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful question. You can be your unique individual self. So trying to be like everybody else, trying to slot in, is valueless. Every single person here has a very specific story and a very specific thing that they can contribute to the world. So you just have to find out who you are and try not to be afraid of it.